Hi everyone, my name is Cecilia Sauer and welcome to my kitchen. Today we will be baking in PJs because we can. Today's lesson is going to be about making dinner rolls and the basics of using a scale. So a little bit about myself. I have over 5 years experience working in a kitchen, whether it be commercial or catering, you name it, just well-rounded. And this is an introduction course. So if you have experience, it'll be fun to watch. Maybe you'll learn something new. So normally I'd ask you a little bit about yourselves, but we're on YouTube. Leave me a comment. I'll respond. Please do. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the first part of our lesson, which is about the basics of using a scale. So as far as using the scale, I'm talking about a basic digital scale you can get anywhere, most likely Walmart or your local grocery store. On average, they're about $10, $12, so it's nothing too pricey. You just need something to get the job done. So most scales have 2 buttons. That's one button. This is the second button. When you go to use it, make sure you're using it on a level surface. Next, you want to hold it because if you just tap it, it'll just tear it, which means zeroing it out. But holding it turns it off and on. So the first thing you need to know about your scale is when you start to measure. Most people forget this step, but when you put a container on, you do not automatically start measuring. You have to zero out the scale. See, now it's 0, now we can start measuring. But when you go to use it and measure something else, not every container is created equally. That's why you have to tear every single time. It will make a difference. The next button is unit. It's exactly as it says. Each time you press, you can see where it goes to a different unit. In today's lesson, the recipe that we are going to be using uses grams. So that's what we will be using. Sometimes it takes a minute. And when you're done using the scale, you just press and hold. That's it. Now remember, batteries go dead, so if their scale's acting weird or acting off, just check or replace the battery. It could be that. So now we're ready to start doing our recipe. Any of you guys have questions about a kitchen scale? Fairly simple, fairly easy. Most people just overthink what they're doing. Just remember, always zero out the scale every time you need to measure something, and it will solve the majority of the problems. So now that we're ready to start actually making dinner rolls, if you have your own recipe, feel free to go ahead and use it and follow along. If not, I have one right here for you. This is a basic, simple, soft roll recipe. This would be a good time to pause and write down the recipe for your own uses, whatever you need, and when you're done, feel free to unpause. So before you start measuring, look at the actual ingredients. Most of the times you could put dry with dry and wet with wet. Well, for this recipe, we're going to hold the water and the yeast separately just for a minute. You can literally put all the bread, the salt, and the sugar, and the milk solids all in one thing. And for the butter, make sure it is unsalted because you don't want to have extra salty bread rolls. If you don't have shortening, that's okay. Some people have used bacon grease, other people have used other things. Me, I just swap it out and just do extra butter. Why not keep it simple? This is the step if you want to do any changes or make it your own, is where you add things like herbs, seasoning, cheeses. And this is where you can customize to how you want. Alright, so hopefully everyone has all their ingredients measured out. Instead of doing shortening, I just did butter. My water is slightly on the warmer side. It's about 104. And I don't have a mixer, so I'll show you how to do it without, but having a mixer is wonderful. I will be doing a variation that has black pepper, thyme, Parmesan, and a little bit of mushroom powder. So first thing we want to do is a little trick to find out if the yeast is working. Or actually active, not necessarily working. Because sometimes yeast goes bad. So we're going to take some of the water and we're going to mix it with the yeast and let it bloom. Alright? So I'm going to do the straight dough method where I'm just going to literally add everything. into my bowl, and we'll go from there. Now, for the straight dough method that I am currently using instead of using the mixer, is everything is in the bowl. So instead of shortening, I just did 2 settings of butter. For the milk solids, I have a buttermilk milk solid. It's just pretty much dehydrated milk. And then you got the salt, the sugar, my thyme and pepper, and a little bit of my mushroom powder. And then I like the extra flavor, so I added more Parmesan than I needed to. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add this yeast. You can see how it's starting to activate with the bubbles, and so we know this is good. So I'm going to add this, and I'm going to add water and make it into a dough. And then we're going to start hand mixing it, because I wish I had a mixer. Mixers are wonderful things. Alright, so as you can see while I'm rolling my dough, how it is super wet. Well, if it's extra wet, feel free to have some of the flour that you're using to help get the extra moisture. Where I'm at is a lot more humidity, so I have to have the extra. If it looks dry like this, feel free to add a little bit of water. You want to have the right consistency, which is fairly similar to that right there. That's what you're looking for. This is a perfect fun activity if you want to have it done with your kids, if you want to do it handmade. But just be warned, she likes to try everything.
Try it. More.
Now, how to tell when your bread is done is you take a portion of it and you do the window pane test. And the window pane is where you're doing this. You're spreading the dough out. You see how it breaks? That is not done. This is how you can tell it is done. When you stretch it out, you can look through it like a window pane. Yeah, it still breaks somewhat, but you see how it gets thin right there? It means you have enough gluten. So after you've done the window pane test, you take this and you start balling it like that, and you're going to put it in a clear container or someplace where it can double in size. I recently moved, so I really don't have much, so we're going to do this on the table here. I put a little bit of oil on here so it gives it nice, lots of room. And then I'm going to cover it. So once you have your bread in the oiled container and you have it set to rise, you want to cover it in plastic, but not too tightly because you still want the dough to rise. And you set it someplace warm to ferment. Normally anything above 80 degrees, but here it's kind of cool, so I have a warmed wet towel that we're just going to let it rise underneath. And we'll come back to it in an hour. So as you can see, the dough has now risen to twice its size. And while you guys are waiting for yours to rise, I'm going to show you how to make dinner rolls, the actual rolling of the dough. First thing you're going to need is to get a half sheet tray. And because I'm lazy on cleanup, I put parchment paper down, so that way all you have to do is throw away the parchment paper. So now let's start to learn how to roll the dough. Alright, so this is my favorite part. Yeah, punch it real good. You're just pretty much letting out the excess air and gas and stuff. And now we're going to measure out 2 ounces of dough. That is going to look like this. First, we got to turn it on. We know we're at 0. We want to make sure that we're on ounces. That's pounds and ounces. Good enough. We essentially just need 2. And you just keep doing that until you close enough, right? And there you go. Alright, so for this portion, feel free to pause, rewind, keep going over it again, because you're probably going to be using this several times, just trying to figure out how to make that round roll. So this is what it looks like once you have everything portioned out into 2 ounces. Feel free to put a damp cloth over them or keep plastic covering them so they don't dry out. And I tend to do that with them on the pan. We'll show you that once we get making rolls done. So you got one of these things. You can do it with both hands, one hand, but essentially you got to cup your hand and you're just going to roll it around in a circle. And you'll end up with something that looks like that. Now if you want that smooth, really good surface, you can put your hand like that and you push the dough through and try and keep it smooth, and you see how it bubbles out? You can do that until you get it all the way through and you get that nice round top. But it leaves a little weirdness. So I just do this, and there's your round little ball. So now we're going to set this aside on the tray, and we're going to let that rise. All right, now some people have problems with their hands, arthritis, whatnot. There's a little trick. You can get a small container, something that would be short that would help with the ball. You're just pretty much doing this. And you get generally a dough ball. And you just put pretty side up. That's all there is to it. Don't overthink this. This is just really simple. Just roll it. And if you want the smooth texture, push it through. And feel free to just place it on the tray. For me, making rolls, it's fairly simple. That's just my favorite method. I don't even like doing that push through part. I just like rolling it and placing it on the pan. Some people enjoy other ways of doing things. Since you're still waiting for your dough to rise, it takes probably an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, depending on what type of humidity and moisture content you have. But this is a good time to relax, chit chat, get to know whoever's baking with you. Works for me. It's a really good social project. I'm enjoying this because my little one's taking a nap, so I actually get some peace and quiet. Thus, I'm talking to you. It's really relaxing. It doesn't take much effort and just smells amazing. I just like the smell of yeast and bread. And these perfect little dough balls. All right, so once you're done rolling the rolls, this is what 2 dozen looks like on a half sheet. So when these get ready to start rising, we're going to go ahead and preheat the oven. Cool thing is that's all you got to do. So now you got to clean up while you got to wait for these, and so you can actually bake them. Just make sure you keep them covered with damp cloth because no one likes that dried crust. So since the recipe makes a little close to 2.5 dozen, I got 4 rolls left over. I'm actually going to put them together and make a bread bowl. You can always do plenty of things with leftovers. You can also bake them as extra rolls themselves. Looks more like a mini loaf instead of an actual bread bowl. It's leftover dough. We're going to see what we can get out of it. So now that they've proofed and they're almost touching, it's time to bake. Next, you're going to find a cool little trick about par baking. All right, so I'm going to show you what par bake is. Par bake is where it's cooked to where it's just slightly golden brown, so it's mostly cooked, but it's not fully done. What it is you pull them out when you get to that point, and you let them cool off, and then you can put it in your freezer. So when you have guests, you're more than welcome to pull them out, heat them up to finish them off, so that way you still have fresh rolls. I'm not interested in par baked rolls, so we are just going to wait for them to fully cook. Since I didn't par bake, this is what the done rolls look like. You could tell how they're nice. A little darker brown, but still golden brown. So we're going to let them cool off and see what they taste like. So now I have everything out of the oven and cooling off. You guys are probably waiting for yours to finish cooking. I just thought I'd show you. It was a nice surprise. The one that I made with 4 extra rolls did become a nice bread bowl. I plan on using it tomorrow. So now we're going to look at how successful our baking was. So I'm going to take the roll, and I'm going to open it. Look at how nice that is. That is a beautiful crumb. So these are nice, amazing rolls. And hopefully any variations you did would turn out awesome. So normally if I was doing this as a group or in a classroom or any other setting, I would have a chance to chit chat with you guys. Let me know how your creations turned out, because mine turned out pretty awesome. Surprisingly, the Parmesan came out pretty mellow and this would be amazing with soup. Maybe a chicken pot pie, I don't know. Husband loves it. Little one's not a bread fan, but this is pretty amazing. No, you can hear her in the background. She's having fun. So hopefully you guys would like to experiment more with your recipes. But at least you have a fallback for an amazing dinner roll. Thank you for watching.